sound of gentle wind and rustling leaves. Start with a warm storytelling tone. Have you ever been in that frantic rush trying to get everything ready before a big storm hits? You know, running to the store, bringing in the patio furniture, making sure all the windows are shut tight. Well, let me tell you a story about a little hero who knows that feeling all too well. Her name is Squeaky, a fiery little red squirrel with a very, very big problem. Squeaky and her family, her partner Pip, and their 3 tiny, fuzzy babies, had lived happily in the old oak tree at the edge of the meadow for years. It was perfect, cozy, safe, with a pantry always stocked full of acorns. But a few weeks ago, a wicked gust of wind, a precursor to what was to come, had ripped a huge branch off their beloved oak, leaving their once secure nest terrifyingly exposed to the elements. They needed to move, and they needed to move fast. So Squeaky, being the brave and determined matriarch she was, took on the mission of finding a new home. Every single morning, as the sun's first rays painted the sky, she'd kiss her sleeping babies, give Pip a reassuring nod, and scamper off on her grand house-hunting adventure. She explored everything. She peeked into a hollow log, but it was damp and smelled of grumpy badger. She considered an abandoned bird's nest, but it was flimsy and far too drafty for her little ones. She even tried to negotiate with a grumpy old woodpecker for a spot in his magnificent pine tree, but he just tapped his beak menacingly and told her to get lost. Day after day, she returned home, exhausted and discouraged, her little paws sore and her spirit a little lower. Then, one afternoon, the sky began to change. The cheerful blue slowly morphed into a bruised, menacing shade of purple-gray. The wind, which had been a gentle whisper, started to howl, whipping through the branches with an angry hiss. The birds fell silent. Every creature in the forest knew what was coming. A big storm, a really big one. Panic seized Squeaky's tiny heart. She looked back towards her exposed nest, picturing her precious family shivering and scared. Failure was not an option, not today. With a newfound surge of adrenaline, she pushed herself harder, her eyes darting everywhere, scanning every nook, every cranny. The first heavy drops of rain began to fall, splatting against the leaves like tiny warnings. The air grew cold, and that's when she saw it. It wasn't a grand oak or a majestic pine. It was a boot, a single forgotten hiking boot, lying on its side at the base of a thicket of ferns, half covered by moss. It was old, weathered, the leather cracked, but the opening looked dark and, most importantly, dry. It was a long shot, a desperate, crazy idea, but she was a desperate, crazy mom on a mission. Squeaky cautiously crept closer, her nose twitching, sniffing the air. It smelled of old leather, earth, and nothing else. No grumpy badgers, no territorial woodpeckers. She poked her head inside. It was dark, surprisingly spacious, and completely shielded from the wind and the now pouring rain. The thick sole would keep them off the damp ground, and the sturdy leather walls were like a fortress. It was perfect. Unconventional, yes, but perfect. She didn't waste a second. Ignoring the lashing rain and her own exhaustion, she raced back to the old oak. Chattering urgently, she explained the plan to Pip. He looked at the boot, then back at her, a look of pure trust in his eyes. One by one, they carefully carried their babies, gently holding them by the scruff of their necks through the raging storm. It was a perilous journey, dashing between raindrops that felt like boulders, but together they made it. They huddled inside their new, strange, leathery home, a jumble of warm fur and relieved chirps. As the storm raged outside, with thunder booming and lightning cracking across the sky, Squeaky and her family were safe. They were dry. They were together. Curled up inside an old, forgotten boot, listening to the tempest, Squeaky knew she had found more than just a shelter. She had found a real home, a testament to the fact that sometimes the most unexpected places provide the greatest refuge, and that a mother's love is strong enough to weather any storm.